Hello, everybody. How are we doing? We just brimming over with excitement and enthusiasm. Anybody here not a football fan? They're all home in bed. They're going to sleep this day through because there's just too much hoopla for them. This is the second part of a two-part series. I started it last week, and it's on the creative process and where we can create what we want in our lives using spiritual principles. And last week, I began with talking about potential. Potential is everywhere. From this point forward, anything can happen. And that led to desires. When there is potential, there is a desire to express that potential. Now today we're going to talk about the imagination. Napoleon Hill said the imagination is one of the most marvelous, miraculous, inconceivably powerful spiritual attributes that anybody could have. It overpowers anything else that we have. For if we imagine something with great detail and emotion, it becomes real to us. Our reality becomes in our head, even though it doesn't match with what's going on out here. As children, we all used our imagination a lot more, whether we're playing with dolls or trucks or cowboys or Indians or fantasizing about something or somebody. And when I was a child, my fantasy was Superman. At that time, he was the only superpower around. Batman hadn't even come into existence yet. But Superman, oh, how I longed to be Superman. I would dress up in my long underwear and put my swimming suit on over that, had a little t-shirt with an S scrawled on it, and on the back I had a towel pinned to the shoulders, and I would run through the house as fast as I could, and whenever I entered a room, I'd take a giant leap and come down in the middle of the room, my hands and my fists, Superman! Well, it was fun, and I enjoyed it. And in my mind, I actually became Superman. You know, I would take like hangers and bend them. And I thought that I was faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive. It was just so much fun. But then came the day when my father's boss and his wife came to dinner at our house. And I was kind of shuffled away because it was a private event. Something very important was happening. I didn't know what. Well, after a while, I thought that they might enjoy visiting Superman. So I got up a good run, jumped into the dining room, Superman! And the boss's wife was so startled, she dropped her spoon into her soup and it splattered all over her front. A cold silence came over the room as my father stood up and said, "Come with me." We went into his bedroom, shut the door, sat down on the bed, and he said, "Dookie, this Superman thing has to come to an end. You're 18 now." And he went on to say, "You've outgrown your uniform, and when you go off to college, this isn't going to work so good for you." But I love being Superman. And I still do kind of dream about that now and then, being able to have something, some sort of a superpower that I can go with. Now, last week I talked about potential, and I explained that at the Big Bang 14 billion years ago, there was nothing but pure potential. Potential for everything that you see today, for everything that exists, including you. The potential for you existed 14 billion years ago. Now, think about that. For you just as you are. And from that Big Bang 14 billion years ago, everything began to progress and everything began to evolve, and potential was unleashed. And that's the world we live in today. Now, every time there's potential, there's also a desire. God had the potential to create all of this. It was a desire within God to exercise that potential and begin the evolution. Desires are different than wants or needs. A need is something that we have to sustain our life, like food and water and shelter from the elements and all of those things. We need that to stay alive. Now, wants are something totally different. Wants are something we see in the world around us that we would like to have, we would like to share with somebody, we would like to be engaged in. We want a new car. We want to win the lottery. We want to do this. We want to do that. And wants are great. It's another form of dreaming. but there's no guarantee what you want is what you're going to get. Now, desires are totally different. Desire is a deeper want. Desire is something that comes from the soul, and it's not of desiring the material, but it is desiring that which is within you, whether it be peace of mind, or whether it be a loving heart, or whether it be more harmonious relationships, whatever it is, all those spiritual capacities that we have, it is the desire that brings them forth from the potential that we have. Now, the imagination has one interesting aspect to it, and that is the mind cannot tell the difference between something imagined in great detail with emotion and something real. Our mind cannot tell the difference between real and not real when it comes to the imagination. Now think about that for a second. And we all know this. We have imagined the worst in different situations we've gotten in, and they never came to be. We have imagined somebody might not be a good person, they might be an evil person, they might be guilty of something, even though that's not the truth at all. Every one of us, I would assume, at some point in time, we were laying in bed as a young child, and the shadows on the wall created the image of a monster or a boogeyman. And the more we looked at it, the more we were convinced that's exactly what it was, and we were in danger. And so we scream out for our parents. And they come and they flip the light on, and there's nothing there at all. The imagination is so powerful that it can create visions within our mind that we think are real, even if they're not at all. Researchers in human studies estimate that 90% of the worry, the anxiety, and the fear that we experience, 90%, is false, based on false premises, and it never happens. 90%, think about that. The upset, the disturbance, the sleepless nights in your life could be reduced by a great deal, if not the whole 90%. But we imagine, when something happens, we usually imagine the worst case scenario. It's like, oh my gosh, what will happen? You know, a good friend or a relative of ours gets on the plane, they're going to fly over to China at this time, and we worry, oh my gosh, will the person be okay? Will they make it? Will everything be fine? We worry. See, imagination has a twofold approach to it. It can guide us towards what we can do and what we can accomplish, but the hitch is it can also not be good for us. We can imagine things that destroy the experience of a loving, peaceful experience that we have here in the world. 90% of our problems, challenges, worries, and anxieties never happen. Now, in addition to that, our imagination can become so great that we achieve things that have never been achieved before. And one of these is a fellow named Roger Bannister. Well, to go way back, there's always been a gesture, a push to get the human being to run faster, even during the ancient Olympic Games in Greece. Get the runners to run as fast as they possibly can. And the Greeks actually had lions chase their runners to get them to run faster. And then they had to drink tiger milk for 10 months before they went into the Olympics. But none of them were able to run as fast to break the 4-minute mile. Well, thousands of years later, a fellow named Roger Bannister at the 1952 Olympics, he runs a mile in less than 4 minutes. First time ever in the existence of humanity. When asked how he did it, he said, I spent as much time in my mind imagining me run a less than 4-minute mile. I imagined the stopwatch when I ran across the finish line, and it was 3-something. I spent as much time in my mind practicing as I did on the track practicing. And that's how he did it. Now, the amazing thing is, once he ran that 4-minute mile, or less than 4-minute mile, within 2 years, 37 other people did it. Up until that time, it was impossible. And that was in their imagination. They said, we don't have the potential to do this. But they did have the potential to do that. And as soon as Bannister did it, they were able to imagine that they could do it as well. At the UCLA basketball team, they hired a person that was a human researcher. And he did an experiment. He took the team and divided them in 2 different groups. One group, he had come 6 days a week and shoot 30 free throws. The other group, he said, go to a quiet place and imagine yourself throwing free throws. After 6 weeks of this, both parts of the team come back together, and their achievement level was exactly the same, even though one group hadn't thrown a ball for 6 weeks. I mean, that's just how strong the imagination is. One of the most heartwarming stories that I've heard has to do with a community of 2,500 families in Paraguay. And these people, this community, live on a landfill. And this landfill every day receives 15 tons of trash. And this community, every day, they go out and they search the trash to find anything that's of the slightest value just for their survival. There's an excellent documentary. It's called Landfill Harmony, or Landfill Harmonic. You can get that on YouTube if you want more about this. But what happened is one of the young gentlemen in the community decided that he loved music so much that he wanted to create music. But a violin costs as much as a house in Paraguay. So he and a couple other people started going through the trash and finding things that could make instruments. And they developed their orchestra. And one fellow named Bibi played on this YouTube scene. He played Beethoven's Symphony No. 1 or something like that. And it was wonderful, beautiful. And the instrument he was using was made out of an old oil can, some used kitchen supplies, and a bunch of other stuff, just junk that he had found. And now this orchestra is being invited to play all over the world. They're bringing in money for the community. And they soon see themselves moving beyond the landfill and going to some place where they have a healthier lifestyle. So we have potential. Everybody here has it. We have desire. We all get that from time to time, the deep desire, where it's not for anything in the outer world that can fix it, but it's something inside. We have imagination, which is important because when we imagine what we want, when we imagine already having gotten it, that directs the mind that it is real, and it'll start directing you in that regard. And in the book of Matthew, Jesus says exactly that. He says, when you pray as if you've already received what you want, and it will be yours. Now, the evidence is there, how powerful our imaginations are and the things we can do with it if we learn how to utilize it right. But nothing is a smooth ride. We've learned everything in our lives through a series of repetition, have we not? Remember learning how to print in grade school? We print the same letters over and over and over and over and over again until we're able to memorize them and until they look good. And then when it came to writing, I remember we used to do these little circles. Remember that? No, this is way before your time. I get it. These exercises, these little circles over and over and over again, then straight lines up and down over and over and over again until we're able to write. It's the same thing in creating what you want in your life. You picture it in your mind, you make it real with emotion, you take the first step towards that, and if something happens in the outer world that says it's not going to work, you're never going to do this, just ignore it and continue to persist and persist. And you'll find what you want will come to you. And once again, I'm talking about those deep spiritual emotions within you. Like love, we can all love more. And like peace of mind, we can all have more peace of mind, especially in this day and age when there's so much disturbance and disruption and confusion going on in our own country between people. I'd like you to give yourself a challenge. Just think of what emotion you feel is running a little bit low right now. It might be self-confidence. It might be joy. It might be happiness. It might be love. It might be compassion. Just think of that and think of what would satisfy your desire for that. What kind of a situation or circumstance you need to be in to experience the fullness of that. Imagine that daily. Your mind picks it up as being true. It'll begin to direct you towards whatever it is you want. So as I go into meditation, I encourage you to think that. And I also like to encourage you to think about 8 o'clock tonight. You know, the 2-minute warning is passing the game. And we just imagine the Chiefs are behind by 6. And it doesn't look good. 30 seconds in the game. Mahomes gets the ball. He runs back. People are coming from every direction. He sidesteps them. He gets ready to throw the ball. He can't with that hand, so he throws it with this hand. Scores a touchdown and the Chiefs win. All right.